It's spinning. Okay. And we are live. So, welcome to my caregivers. Welcome. This is Tracy Knows Caregiving. I want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I have this evening a very sweet person that I have met through LinkedIn, who we've never actually seen each other face to face until tonight. So now I get to see her beautiful, shining face. And her name is Lee Broadway. She is a caregiver, was a caregiver in the past. She has a wonderful story that she's going to tell all of us about taking care of her father. And we are going to get to hear about all the different things that she has been doing to try and help the caregiving community out in California. I'm in Florida, so we're like 3,000 miles away. So we're enjoying being able to see each other virtually. Before COVID, none of us knew Zoom probably existed, and now we're all like Zoom experts. So who knew? Who knew? That's why I was telling Lee before the broadcast. I have a young person who helps me with all of this because, it gets a little crazy with all the tech stuff. So I'm just like, just set me in front of a microphone and I think I can go. But other than that, you take care of everything else. So Alex is my beautiful person who does that. And he is a great guy. So Lee, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here and be able to share my story and hopefully something that will help people, caregivers, to be encouraged about their journey.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell us where you live and kind of how you got into caregiving and all of that backstory?
Thank you. Well, I live in Orange County, California, and I have been caregiving it was a total of 14 years. And my father, he became ill back in 1997. He had started with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And then that escalated, and because he was a smoker for so many years, and then he became ill with the heart problems. So Dad actually had a couple of heart attacks. He was living in Orange County at the same time, and I started doing little things for him because with the caregiving process, Tracy, as you know, it's one thing, and then something else will happen. They might have a fall. They have to go into the hospital. They have to go into rehab. And it was a gradual process. And so I decided to just take all that knowledge and experience and challenges that my father and I, experienced together and create something to help other caregivers. But I am doing a lot of work in Orange County, California, and also in Los Angeles. And I can share a little bit about that in terms of, caregiver resources with the audience tonight.
That's excellent. Obviously, that's an enormous community. LA is huge. I actually have family out in California, out in San Diego area. So I have visited California many times and been to LA, but that is a huge community and it's definitely needs to be served. So there is a lot of opportunity there. My dad did the same kind of thing. He got sick and he was declining and caregiving, that is true. The thing is that things do change on a dime. You literally go from day to day. Sometimes you even go hour to hour and minute by minute.
You never know. When they start to decline, it's just a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then you find yourself embroiled in, 5 days a week. And then it's for a month. And then all of a sudden you realize that you are a caregiver because we don't have that realization at first. It's really just, I'm taking care of my parent or my spouse or whoever is becoming, more dependent upon you. And you don't realize what you're getting into or, what's happening at the time. It's a very gradual process.
It really is, and the thing is that, like you say, you are slowly drawn into it. And all of a sudden, it can becoming overwhelming very, very quickly. At least it did for me. Was it that way for you?
Exactly. I was working full time, so I was a working caregiver. That's a whole demographic in and of itself.
Yes, it is. I did the same thing. Yeah.
So you understand, juggling a full-time job, and then there were times when I would cook for my father because he lived alone at first, and he wasn't eating properly, which probably contributed to his type 2 diabetes. So I started making dinners, freezing them, putting them in, plastic bags and taking them over on the weekends so he could eat well during the week. And so that was probably another responsibility I started taking on. And of course, once you start, you want to make sure they're okay and that they're healthy.
Yes.
but you can't really stop once you start.
No, no, and I never had children, but I always, my parents actually laughed at me because both of my parents started declining at the same time last
Wow.
September. And I'm middle child, older sister, younger brother. My older sister died 15 years ago in a car accident, and my younger
Mm.
brother died 2 years ago from
Oh,
alcoholism. So I was the only one that could take care of both of them. And so it was kind of funny. Halfway through, I was taking care of both of them. I was cooking all the meals every day. I was doing in full caregiver mode, and my dad finally said to me, he goes, "When did we become the kids and you became the parent?" I said, "I don't know, but it definitely has happened." Because I'm like definitely thinking you guys are my kids, because I'm like, you got to take your meds. Did you take your meds? Do you got to do this? You got to do that. And you don't mean to do that, but it's the only way that you can know they're safe. Like you say, the only way you know that they're being taken care of,
well,
and
you have to. And my dad was driving. We had to take the car away, which was very, very hard, especially I think for men. It's especially hard losing their sense of freedom. And
mm,
he took that, very hard when we had to
mm,
make that decision because it was no longer safe for dad to drive. His hearing was going. And we
mm,
tried to make it as comfortable and provide enough freedom for him where he could still walk. He walked
mm-hmm,
every day, long before he ever became ill, which was probably
mm-hmm.
contributed to his longevity, even though he had a lot of medical issues.
Yeah.
And so we made sure that he could get out. We'd walk with him on weekends or after work. I would come over because I was the
Mm-hmm.
only child in Orange County at the time.
Oh
And that was
wow.
right. So that was important. I'm an only girl, so I think I was probably better suited in some ways. I have a lot of patience.
Yes.
And
Yes.
he loved the company. So you want to make sure that they're safe, but also
Mm-hmm.
allow them, the sense of dignity that they can still
Yes.
do some things on their own. I think that's really key when you're caregiving, is to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that whether it's male or female, that you're allowing them to be involved in the decision making, where they live,
Yes.
what foods they prefer, rather than making those decisions on their behalf. Very important.
And I think that's awesome. I think all of that is so critical and so crucial because, like you say, they already are feeling like, I'm losing my sense of doing this. I'm losing my sense of doing
Right.
that. I can't do this anymore. I can't do that anymore. And they have to feel like they still have some control.
Absolutely.
Because my dad was former military. And so
Uh,
his losing that lack of control was really, really difficult for him. And he was a problem child, dealing to deal with, because bless his heart, and I love my father to death, but there were times when it was just he was battling so hard, with all of that. So it was you definitely, I agree, it is so vitally important for caregivers to remember, okay, this is what their background is, this is where they're coming from, and I have to make them feel like they still have some decisions they can make, they can still be in control of some of this stuff and all that
Correct.
stuff. I think that that's really, really important. Well, now, so what specific challenges did you and your father experience during the caregiving journey? What were some of the hurdles that you kind of had to deal with?
Well, we initially, he was living alone in a condominium, and so he didn't have anyone around, no family except me to look in on him. And so we
Mm-hmm.
came to the decision, which was difficult, to
Mm,
find an assisted living facility where, of course, I could still visit and take
right.
care of certain things on his behalf, medications and so forth.
Right.
Um, but however, it was really important for us to know that there was someone around him. So
Mm-hmm.
finding affordable housing, a lot
Mm,
of folks that I talk to in the community who are not yet caregivers and some who are coming into caregiving aren't aware of the cost of assisted living if you opt not to place your parent or loved one in a nursing home.
oh
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
It's out of pocket. Assisted living is 100% out of pocket money. And the average cost for a one bedroom right now is probably around $5,000 a month. That's all out of pocket personal money. If they're not
Yes.
able to live alone at their home, which, we're working on solutions today, many organizations are looking at other options for healthy, livable communities
Right.
where older folks can stay in their homes longer. However,
Right.
if they have multiple medical issues and they absolutely have to be in assisted living, then the cost is exorbitant. And that's one of the major challenges
Yeah.
we experienced. We were able to do that. My father had enough income, and my family members, joined in, but it's very difficult for the average caregiver to find affordable housing. So I'd say that was one of the major challenges. The other challenge, a lot of folks who aren't caregiving, and I hear and get their feedback because I see that at some point they're probably going to come into that if their parents are aging and they're not as healthy as they like them to be, is time. Everybody thinks it's only about the money. It isn't about the funds. Where are they coming from? There's time. For instance, if your spouse or a parent, say, has a stroke or a heart attack, you have to be an emergency to facilitate the paperwork, the decisions being made, the surgeries that can or perhaps need to be done. You have to be there. Someone has to advocate for your parents. And so the time, the housing and the element of time as a working caregiver was extremely challenging. I had to leave work on occasion, and that began to escalate. First, it would be 1 hour a week if he needed to go to an appointment, and he could no longer move from the, let's just say, access into the doctor's office because they don't escort you. I would have to take him because he was becoming a little, his brain was a little foggy. I think dementia was setting in. And he wasn't fully diagnosed, but he was, becoming forgetful and had difficulty managing the logistics of where he was going. So I had to leave work on many occasions to make sure he was safe and that he got to the doctor's appointments.
And that's one of the huge things that people have so many issues with is that, the time element is one key factor. As you say, there are so many doctor's appointments. I mean, between my mother and my father, I felt like I was going to the doctor every other day.
we were naming a wing after him at the hospital where he was.
It's
so often they all knew, they waved.
That's it. They get to where they all know you. We know your mom. We know your dad. Exactly. It is. It's totally completely insane. And one of the key reasons why I created my company is that I've actually found some companies that can help with that. There is a company, and I wish I had known you earlier, and I could tell you about this company, but I can let everybody know about it now. But there's a company called Papa, and it's papa.com. And it actually is based out of Miami, and it's really cool because they connect to the patient's insurance, and it can be Medicare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, their supplemental, whatever. But the great thing is they actually have background screened people they call Papa Pals, and they actually will pick the patient up, take them to the doctor appointment, stay at the doctor appointment, take them home. They don't charge the patient or the family anything. They run it all through the insurance.
And will they escort them in to the doctor's appointment? Oh, okay. That's great.
Yes, it's wonderful. And they're nationwide. And they even can come and clean the patient's home for a couple hours and everything. So it's really, really cool. But I think that's one of the key things is that, like you say, the time element is really, really critical. People tend to lose, and they don't realize if they're not caregiving, how much time is going to be needed. It really does become consuming if you don't really, and that's where you too can not take care of yourself. You get to where you don't take care of yourself because you're so busy taking care of them.
Well, it's true. I'm type A, and I wanted to manage it and handle it, and I was able to for a long time. But then I was getting older. I was 39 when I started caregiving for my father, and 53 when he passed. And so it was a long journey. And I eventually had to stop working the last 3 years of Dad's life because it was no longer feasible for me to be able to do my job. I was in banking for almost 30 years, and I had a high pressure job with goals, and it wasn't possible to juggle being in the office, underwriting, leaving, taking my dad to appointments, missing deadlines. It was no longer feasible. And it was just, there were some things that just simply had to be done by a relative. So if anyone's listening and you're in that position, we do have some options today. I know Tracy's company is amazing, and she shared one of those options. So I think getting the resources to the caregivers where they live and breathe, the assisted living facilities, nursing homes, adult daycare centers, other organizations in the community who are partnering, could be Alzheimer's, centers and so forth. We need to let the people who are interacting with the caregivers
Yes.
know about the resources that are available. And that's one of the passions I have. And I'll share a little bit about what I'm doing in that vein right now.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, just generally speaking, I am an AARP volunteer and I am a caregiver advocate on behalf of AARP and volunteer basis only. I go in to nursing homes, or it could be the local church or senior centers, and I present a program called Prepare to Care. And it's all about the specific elements about being prepared to care for someone that you love prior to becoming a caregiver, taking note of the legal documents that need to be in place,
Mm-hmm.
looking at the housing options before you need to move your loved one into either a nursing
Mm-hmm.
home, assisted living, adult,
Mm-hmm.
could be like a house where they keep, and take care of older adults. So I make sure that the community is aware of the resources. We have booklets called Prepare to Care. They are in various versions. We have a Spanish, English, Asian version, Pacific Islander. We have LGBTQ version. Anyone who's a caregiver, and really caregiving crosses all ethnicities,
Yes, it
socioeconomic,
does. Yep. Don't matter.
lines. It
Don't
doesn't
matter who you
matter.
are.
If
Nope.
you live long enough, or the people that you love live long enough, you're going to become a caregiver, and at some point you're going to need one. So I'm
Absolutely.
passionate about the Prepare to Care guides and the materials that AARP is able to share with the community. I'm boots on the ground. I'm excited to go in and talk to people about these resources so that they don't fall into some of the difficulties I experienced because I wasn't aware of the resources during the time I was caregiving.
And that is so true. I'm very passionate about it too. I think that's one of the reasons you and I connected so much was because of the fact that, education is the key. Education truly is the key. If people understand there are resources out there that can help them, there are companies and there are places that they can go within their local community, or companies online or whatever it may be, that can truly help them and make this journey not so difficult, because it is going to be difficult no matter how many resources you have. It's an emotional journey, because whoever it is that you're caring for, you love them. You love them enough that you are doing a very selfless thing. You're actually doing a very selfless thing for them. And I think it's a beautiful thing, but you have to understand that it's going to take a lot out of you. it's going to,
It's going to take a
I,
lot out of you,
it's going to take a lot out of you
emotionally, physically, spiritually,
in every sense,
financially, in every area of your life, if you're not
every area of
ready
your
for
life.
that journey. And it
Absolutely.
really is self-perpetuating, because if you don't take care of yourself, and let's just say you're an only child and you're
Mm-hmm.
using all of your time and resources, not just financially, but also,
Mm-hmm.
the element of time when you're ready, to become when you're ready to retire, you're not going to have those resources available to you, because
Absolutely.
a lot of us who've left our jobs to care for parents, we've lost income. I think the average annual figure is like over $300,000 a
Yeah.
year, or I can't remember if that's for, I think annually. But I
Yeah.
mean, you're talking about people that maybe have a mortgage, have put away retirement. And if you
Yeah.
can't work, guess what? You're going to be going through all of that retirement savings and short term, long
Absolutely.
term, medium term, and compromising your own health and financial security for the future. So it's important to make yourself, you know, aware of the resources that are available. And that's why we're here today, to help you to achieve that knowledge and information.
Well, and it is true. The reality of the situation is, I know when I worked for hospice for a long time, hospice was one of those things that, you don't say the word, nobody wants to talk about death or dying or anything like that. But the reality is that, I learned, even just with my sister, I talked to her on a Wednesday night and she was gone the next morning on a Thursday morning at the age of 47. You realize very quickly life is a vapor. We are all here just for a moment in time, and you never know when somebody you love is going to get a diagnosis of cancer or anything else, or whatever. And so all of a sudden you may think, oh well, that's not going to happen to me for another 20 years. I haven't got anybody in my life that's going to and it can happen
It
to
can happen at a
you
moment's
in
notice.
a
No
moment.
guarantees. No, and hopefully it won't. But if it does, at least if you've done the homework, you have resources and you know where to go and who to talk to. for those
Absolutely.
resources.
Well, now, how
Mhm.
did you transition back to your normal routine after your father passed away?
It was hard because your friends and family, they have to get on with their lives. And so the support system I had during, especially the last 3 years of caregiving,
Hmm.
all went away for the most part. I did have obviously my church family, but people have their own lives to get on with. And it's
Yes.
difficult for them to be with you 24/7. It was very hard. I wasn't able to get hired back into my industry. I was 53, and the challenges of finding gainful employment were hard. I had been out of my industry for 3 consecutive years. I was in underwriting and sales in banking, and I lost my book of business, all my referral sources. I've
Oh,
been gone for
wow.
3 years. The industry, of course, changed in 2008. Is when I left
Yes.
banking.
Oh,
We had the
wow.
recession. The industry completely
Mhm.
turned inside out. So it wasn't anything like I remember it when I was ready to get back into the industry back in 2011 after Dad passed. So
Right.
it was really challenging, and I was eventually able to find some contract work, and I really just did the contract work for a very long time. But it was
Right.
devastating on a financial level for me
I
because
bet.
I
I
went through a
bet.
lot of virtually all of my savings in retirement, and lost my cash flow. So it was just very, very hard. And it doesn't have to be that way for everyone. That was my journey, and I share it because I care that other people may be coming into that place without realizing it. It's like a frog in boiling water. It
Yes.
doesn't realize the water's getting hot until it's too late. So
Yes.
I want to encourage folks that before anything happens, like what I'm sharing, reach out to the AARPs.
Yeah.
There's many organizations that can help provide information that'll be helpful to you now and for later.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know in a small way that happened to me. I had started my business back 3 years ago, but when both of my parents got so sick, I literally had to put my entire business on hold for like
Mhm.
9 months. I couldn't do anything. And I was just like, I mean, it was enough just to get up every day and deal with them every single day. And like you say, it's emotionally, it's physically, it's financially, in every capacity of your life. It's just draining. And I think like you say, you don't really realize how draining it is until it ends. And then all of a sudden
Until it's
it
over,
ends
when you
and
stop
you're
and
like,
what happened?
yeah,
You're in this void, and
exactly.
it's really, really challenging to find your way back, especially if you're in your 50s or 60s and you've been caregiving
Mhm.
for a very long time.
Mhm.
It's just different versus someone maybe in their 30s or 40s, and I
Exactly.
know we have millennial caregivers, so that's a whole nother discussion we can have at another
Oh,
time.
yes. Yes, that is. Well, but it is true. And it does happen across the board. Like you say, unfortunately, it's kind of like disease. It's no respecter of persons,
Correct.
and it doesn't just hit people even in the US, it hits everybody globally. So, everybody, and I've told more than one person, I do believe caregiving will eventually touch everybody, because you're going to eventually have to take care of, like you say, a mom, a dad, a spouse, a special needs child, a good friend. Somebody is going to get sick in your life, and you're going to end up having to take care of them. And like you say, the key is having some resources. So now, what advice would you give to future family caregivers? What would be your best advice?
Well, one, prepare to care. Start seeking out the caregiver resources early before anyone becomes ill. If you're a child in your late 30s, early 40s, it's probably the time now to begin seeking out some resources. The average caregiver for female is about 49 when they start caregiving. And in the United States, about 1 in 5 people is a caregiver. So we've got 53 million caregivers out there. Start early before you're one of those folks, and make sure that you have everything in place that you need. You can contact the AARP, you can contact the Dole Foundation, RCI, the Dole Foundation. If you're a military veteran caregiver, they have multiple resources for respite, for financial resources you can access. And there's a whole bevy of opportunities to obtain research or information based on long-term research that'll be helpful to you. The other thing is, think about, caring for yourself. It's so hard because when you're so focused on the person that you love, you forget to eat well, you forget to exercise, all the things that you loved because you no longer have the time go out the window. You start letting your own health decline. I would say make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Mental health is a big discussion today. Whatever, you can do, whether that's exercising, reading a good book, finding a support system. That's key. Whether it's through your faith-based community, it could be someone else who's caregiving, maybe someone that you met, another a friend or family member that's in the community that can come by once in a while and relieve you of your responsibilities, even for a few hours. That makes a huge difference. And really, just if you can, talk to your boss about the fact that you're caregiving. There are a lot of laws that are being written now to protect caregivers from losing their jobs and having time off to care for somebody that they love. So make sure you let your company know that you're a caregiver. If the Human Resources Department should know about the laws that are coming in to existence that are being written and being passed to protect us from losing our jobs because we just don't have the time to be at work any longer. So I probably say those are the main elements.
And I think that's great. I really do think that everybody needs to, I would say, a wholehearted amen to all of that stuff. The reality is that I even just heard about today about a company, H&M. I think it's a youth kind of clothing company or something, but they are actually implementing several different initiatives from HR for people who are caregivers, for mental health caregivers, and they're doing several different initiatives. And I know a lot of companies are now, due to COVID, really, it's kind of come to a forefront, which is excellent. I mean, it's one of the few things that came out of COVID. But they really are realizing that, if people are trying to take care of loved ones at home and just not ship them all off to facilities unless they have to be, which, like you say, sometimes they have to, then you need to be able to help and keep these employees as employees, but you've got to be able to help them, and that's going to make your company be much more attractive to any of these people. It's going to be a benefit that they're going to actually even take a look at. Most companies, this is something very brand new and foreign. So, I think it's great that they start doing stuff like that. And I think those are really, really good. That's really, really good advice. I'm really glad to hear that AARP and I know about AARP and some of the things they've been doing, and the Dole Foundation as well. Those are phenomenal organizations. And they've been around for a very long time, and so they really, really know what they're doing. So, well, Lee, thank you so much for being with me today. I really, really appreciate all of your wonderful information. I think that I'm sure that your father is smiling down on you tonight, knowing that you did a phenomenal job, not only taking care of him, but helping to take care of a lot of other people, especially out in Orange County and LA County and out in California. I am really, really happy for you, really, really excited. And I am really, really thrilled that you came on today. And appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I'll be keeping in touch with you and keeping you updated on the show. And we're just hoping to get that up and running pretty quickly here. As I said, I'm an intercessor. I pray about the time of day. So I want to be in alignment with the Lord and his purposes, because it is a ministry after all.
Absolutely. Mine is the same way. The mission statement for my company is to serve God by serving others. And so that's what we do. We're serving other people and doing it in the process. So I will be hoping and anxious to hear about, your 50+ talk show. I know that will be amazing when it happens. You will be great, because you obviously are already great. And so thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tracy. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. You have a great night.
All right. You too. Blessings.
Okay, bye-bye.